I mean,
I'm gonna die.
yeah, if you're just developing this skill, going all the way to working with the greatest existential issues of life, or sometimes it's difficult.
But those are the things that we get attacked with.
I understand that, but if you can develop skill working with some of the smaller things first, you move up to, that's just the way I look at it.
Sure.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And of course it is. Those are the issues that everybody has to face at some point.
Yeah.
But it's hard to, if you're still in the process of developing the skills,
Sure.
it's hard to work with the biggest issues. It's the same thing with, any big issue that you might have. We always recommend that for people who are doing this kind of meditation, if you have big issues that are really causing you a lot of trouble, you can seek help from counseling. In any way you can get help. This is just a supplement to that. But we can gain a lot of skill in working with even the less life-threatening issues. Because the process is always the same, no matter whether it's the big issues or the small issues. So if you develop the skill working on the dirty plate in the sink, then you can move up to the really, but the point is to do the practice consistently and really work with diligence on those issues, whatever are coming up, whether they're small or large or whatever. Don't discount. If I could develop enough wisdom that all of the small things in life that annoy me don't annoy me anymore, that's a big step for me. And then I can move on to the bigger ones. Okay, any other questions about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you, during Vipassana, do you suggest actively looking for these three characteristics, or do you suggest just like concentrating yourself and hoping that you notice it? Because there seems to be two different views. There seems to be a view of, just concentrating your mind, getting to whatever access concentration or whatever, and then sort of you notice these the three characteristics you talked about, or there seems to be focusing like directly on the impermanence and on the no self.
Yeah, so the thing you don't want to get into is too much sort of analytical thinking or anything.
Yeah.
It's all about seeing. So if you're seeing a certain sensation come up, which is associated with a certain thought, like if there's a thought of something that annoyed you earlier in the day, and that thought comes up when you're meditating, you will feel the same sensation in your body of annoyance that you felt before when it happened. And you recognize, sort of implicitly, you recognize that these things come and go. You can see the impermanence without you don't have to name it as impermanence, but you can see it. So it's a fine line of seeing versus, thinking about. You don't want to get into thinking about things. You don't want to get into some kind of a logical conversation with yourself about these things. It's all a matter of seeing. Yes?
You or somebody said something helpful last week to help me with my meditation during the week, and that is the investigation when you get hooked isn't the why, it's the what. And so if you let the why go,
Yeah.
you're not analyzing it, you're just focusing on the experience.
Right. And if you see what hooks you, you don't have to get into, because the one thing that doesn't really matter is the content of the thought. It's the experience of the thought that you're really getting into. So you could have 5 different contents which all feel the same way. They may all feel attention. So it's attention that's important. And you recognize this is the experience of this thought. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you wouldn't necessarily note it, say that this is the dukkha, this is the anatta.
Yeah. Now on the noting, don't ever get into, well, what should I note this? This is just whatever is the first thing that comes to mind. And as you do this process over time, your notes will get more detailed. They can start out very high level, like thinking. And you note that. Now maybe later on, as you go along, you will see what your persistent thoughts are, and it may be planning or worrying, and then you note it that way, and then maybe the next level of detail will become obvious to you, and then you can note that. But always note whatever is most obvious to you, and that'll change over time. Yes?
So I noticed over the years of doing this practice, I cheer now. Internally, I cheer when I notice something that feels bad. So there's a tendency to notice an old memory that might be associated with trauma during childhood, and I'll notice it, and it might even make me nauseous. And then there's this little cheer that occurs internally, and I'll call it the healing cheer. Like there's a cheer that I uncovered something that was bad. And I have, over the years, attributed that with the actual healing that occurs. In other words, I have a positive mental attitude about feeling bad during meditation. I don't know if it's ever written about in Buddhist texts, but I just noticed that that's what's happening.
Well, and ultimately, the cheer is really a letting go.
Yeah.
Because that's what all of this is all about in the end.
Yeah.
That's that process that you went through where you see the holding on, you recognize it's unskillful and not helpful and leads to suffering, and then that letting go happens.
That's, so a nausea, if it's a big problem in my mind that's been there for a long time, there's a nausea that occurs and then there's a release.
Yeah,
So
and-
the nausea itself
Yeah.
is greeted with pleasure almost. You know? It's really interesting.
However it comes out, yeah.
However it comes out.
But it ultimately is, when you're making progress with this, those letting go
Yeah.
feelings are what's coming up. And that's because then you have let go of this and you have the opportunity to start off in a different direction of seeking happiness in a way that's more skillful and more likely to actually bring true happiness.
Is the experience of non-self the experience like when I'm concentrated, like when I go back to the breath in this, but I'm not connected to them? Is that the experience of not self? Because at that moment I don't feel like I don't think I'm just like, it's just the sensations of watching the thoughts and the sensation of breathing.
Yeah, and
Is that like the experience of not self?
that's one aspect of not self, is where you've detached from it. And you've given it space. That's what I always call it, is giving it space. If there's something that's coming up, if you're really gripped by it, then you're just totally connected. Once you do that, elation has arisen, or whatever the sensation is, you just note it as something that's arisen, you've given it space, and you have the opportunity to just see it rather than get caught up in it. Okay? Yes?
I have a really hard time having a daily practice, and I don't set the time aside, and I don't have a special place. And I was listening to a Dharma talk that was talking about noticing what's pleasurable when you're meditating as an encouragement or something that you would look for. But I thought that was really helpful to try to notice and
Yeah, and ultimately,
experience things that are pleasant while I'm meditating
yeah,
to encourage me.
that's where it goes, is when you get to the point where your meditation is kind of a refuge from the rest of your day, and you're looking forward to it, then your problems with setting aside time for meditation go away, because you're looking forward to doing it. And also, how long do you try to meditate?
Usually around 20 minutes.
Well, if you're having trouble consistently doing 20, try 10 consistently. And then work back up to 20, as long as you can do it on a more consistent basis. Anything else? Hey, thank you for coming.
So, how's that feel?
You ignore it after a while.
You did.
Yeah,
I'd
it's
be like,
distracting for 5 minutes and then yeah.
Like, there's something in my teeth.
I know.
Yeah.
How long do we meditate for?
I'm sorry?
How long do we meditate for?